Welcome, welcome, welcome. Back again, Boxing Sweet Science 2.0. The man, the myth, the legend. I got the urge to splurge. I got the urge to talk to people again. I'm going to be doing some interviews. I got a lot lined up, some good stuff coming, and I want you guys to all be a part of it. I'm going to be going live with my main man, AMER ABDALLAH, today. He's a big, big name in boxing. If you don't know him, you should get to know him because he is changing the game of boxing one fight at a time. So it's important for you guys to tune in and catch up. We had a lot of good boxing coming, a lot of big boxing happening. So it's in boxing is in a good place. All right. Let's see what up. What's up, people? What's up, people? What's up? Tune in. I'm going live today with my man AMER ABDALLAH. There he goes right there. Send me a request, sir. Let's chop it up. My main man. That's how you do business. Like right on time. No bullcrap. Right in. I'm just waiting for your request to come through. There she goes. And here he man, the myth, the legend. Let's see how we go. I accepted it. Let's see where it's at. Accept. The man, the myth, the legend.
How are you,
Mr.
brother?
Abdallah. How are you, man?
I'm blessed. All is great, thank you. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, 100%. 100%.
Wonderful.
Man, listen, I'm honored. I'm excited to actually find out because we talk here and there off on on the phone, but just to really get down and chop it up with you, man. And I know how your schedule is, and I know how you travel, and I know how you move. I'm just honored that you take the time to talk to me, man.
It's mine, man. The honor is mine. Thank you very much. I'm a big fan of everything that you've done, and I've been following you for quite a while. And I think it's great to have people that ask tough questions that address the major issues in this. I call it a business disguised as a sport.
Yes.
And I mean, you say things that are not favorable to a lot of fighters, and you sometimes you end up on different sides of the sword, but I think that's great to have. And
Right.
all in all, I'm a big fan of everything that you do, so thank you for having me on. The honor is mine.
Listen, so let's just dive into it, man. I've been doing some research and ahead of this, and I said, man, this guy is really well rounded in every aspect of life. If I mean, what people see is one thing, but what you've been through and your journey to where you are is really, it's definitely honorable, right? You moved. Do you speak Japanese?
No. I've been to Japan. I don't speak Japanese.
Okay, good. All right, because I read that you actually trained out there for a while, and I thought you lived out there
No,
for a while. No, you didn't
no,
live out there.
I did not. I did
Okay,
not. No.
but you were you. I'm sorry. Say it again.
Fluent in Arabic and English.
Okay, got you. Now, can you used to live in the Bronx?
I was born in the Bronx. I don't remember, we moved up to upstate New York when I was young. I was 8, 9 years old. But for the first, 7, 8, 9 years of my life, yeah, I was in the Bronx. That's where I was raised. My father, rest his soul, Allah yarhamu, had a grocery store out there. And he used to go to lunch at McDonald's every single day. And he goes, man, what an operation that is. And then he finally got into the McDonald's franchises, and they offered him his first store upstate New York. So that's what prompted us to go to upstate New York.
Okay.
And he ended up with 8 stores there.
So he had 3 stores? How many stores he had?
He had 8 McDonald's restaurants.
8. So as a kid growing up, and your dad has full access to chicken nuggets, what was that like, man?
Man, we used to be called, promo them. When we used to come in, all of our meals would be promoed. And I'm telling you, I ate there twice a day, every single day. I don't know about the McDonald's today, but the McDonald's back then, it was all good food, all fresh food, none of those pesticides in there. I grew up on that stuff. So,
yeah. So now let me ask you this: Did you or any of your brothers decide to keep the business going, or you just ventured off?
No, actually, in 1995, my father decided to retire and to go back to Jordan. So he sold all of the stores. I had just graduated high school, so I went back to to the Middle East with him. I was there for 2.5 years, about 2.5 years. And then I came back to the States and I began, you know, my business that I'm currently in now.
Okay.
Yeah.
So tell me about the new company you just started. The is it a promotion company or is it a management company?
So we have a couple of different outfits. You know, in boxing, I take more of an advisory role. There was a couple of different, you know, avenues and different opportunities rather that happened. And I kind of just gravitated to where I'm most comfortable. You know, I enjoy the advisement part of the sport, whether it's advising a country, you know, a ministry of sport, you know, somebody that's trying to launch it, or fighters themselves. And you know, I've touched every part of this game, from a fighter, from a gym owner, to a manager, to a promoter. Um, I for a upstate New York team, the New York State Gold Gloves team, I was the head coach of for 4 or 5 years. So I've touched every aspect of the game. So when I'm sitting and I'm talking to a manager, I'm talking to a promoter, I know what they're thinking. I know what they're looking for. And the same thing when I'm talking to a fighter.
Right.
You know, some people can't relate to that, especially, you know, with fighters. They have, you know, the week of the fight or 2 weeks before the fight, or when the fight first gets announced, they start acting, you know, what people call funny. They don't act funny. That's their normal selves.
Right.
It's because they become very selfless. And unless you're an actual fighter and you've gone through those nerves and those butterflies and that, you know, that mindset and that mentality where, you know, all our eyes are on me, you can never really appreciate that. And I said all of that to say that, you know, I've had the opportunity and I've had the, you know, the blessing to be able to touch all those aspects of the sport where you can, you know, you can see different sides of the sport. And mind you, it's a brutal business. It really is. It's a brutal business. A lot of people, you know, kind of look at it different. It's a very brutal business, and you really have to know what you're doing to be able to manage and get through.
And that's important that you say that, because I always say boxing is a business. And you started off your whole conversation with saying it's a business disguised as a sport. It's 100% the business. And I think a lot of times guys and even fans get misled by the fact that it is a business first. So they want the fights that they want to happen based off the fanfare. But when the business is not right, the fights won't happen because
Of course.
it's the business.
Of course, and that's unfortunately for our sport. You've got it fragmented between the networks. You've got it fragmented between the managers, the promoters, the sanctioning bodies, and it's all around. It's all around the sport, and it prevents the big fights from happening. Prevents all of the fan favorite fights that want to happen, the fights that should happen.
Right.
And it prevents them all from being able to go down because of the nature of the sport. And by the way, boxing is the only sport that's like that.
Yeah, it is. Because most sports are union. Most other sports are union, but boxing is not.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, you have regulatory bodies, even the fighters themselves. How many terrible cases do you see of these world champions? I remember Wilfredo Benavidez, who was the youngest person at 18 when he won his WBC title. I was out at Canastota 10, 20 years ago, and at the International Boxing Hall of Fame, and he was selling his world title belt. You know, it was like $2,000, $2,500. You know, for a legendary guy, where you just feel, you know, terrible seeing that kind of stuff happening. But it happens. It happens because the sport, you know, it's very rogue. Everybody's on their own, and that's just the way that it's structured.
And this is why you're a blessing, because as an advisor, somebody that's on every aspect and you've seen every aspect and you have business acumen, it's important for guys to understand that they need a leader or somebody that can guide them so that they can keep a larger percentage of what they earn versus losing it at the end of the day. Can you speak to more about that, or how you guide guys?
I think that, and I've been asked, you know, to kind of break down the business of the boxing. Here it is from a 10,000-foot version. Being a fighter, being somebody, you know, that's ranked, recognizable in the sport, you have to be. It's almost like being in prison. You need to be affiliated with a gang if you're going to move the right way, and you're not going to be sniped out or a duck on your own to be made an example of.
Right.
So you need especially when you get, you know, to the 15 fight mark, the 20 fight mark, or if, you know, you have a good pedigree as an amateur, you've got to join. And, you know, the major six, 3 big promoters in the U.S., 3 big promoters in the U.K. Those are the number one choices to go through. And there's pros and cons to every single one of them, and that's, you know, individual decision that would have to be made. But put that aside. You need a promoter. You need a manager that's going to be able to, you know, steer you right, negotiate. And the manager, the way that it should work is the manager and the promoter shouldn't be the same team, because it's a conflict of interest. Although, unfortunately, you see a lot of that today. And I'm not saying they shouldn't get along. I'm saying that they shouldn't be on the same team, because of the fighter's guy that ends up losing. Then you have your trainer, and, you know, you've seen time and time again the fallouts between trainers and fighters based on the percentage, and on and on and on.
Yeah.
And then you have your team. You have your training expenses. You have all of that. The fighter incurs all of that. So if a fighter does well, and if he's fighting on his promotion show, and that promotion is the one that's funding him, then they shouldn't take a cut of his purse, although some promotions do. And again, that's where the manager comes in. So if you're fighting on, you know, ABC Promotions, and you're an ABC promotion fighter on their show, and they're still taking a cut from your purse, that's problematic. But putting that aside, let's say you fight on another show. You're talking about 15 to 25% there. You're talking about your manager, 15 to 30% there. Your trainer, 10%. You know, what do you give your cut man? Is it a percentage? Is it a flat purse? What do you give, you know, your camp manager? What do you give the guy that's, you know, helping with your travel, your arrangements, your warm-up suits, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera? If the fighter comes home pre-tax with 60%,
he's lucky.
Then he's great. And now you're talking about, if it's a massive purse, you're talking about, you know, another 30 to 40% tax. So out of $1 million he makes, he might walk home with $450,000 net, meaning that's what he can spend.
Not including sanctioning fees if it's for a title.
Excuse me. If it's a title, then you can add in another 3% at a minimum. On top of that also. So, you know, when you look at a salary and a purse, you know, look, the NFL caps these guys, agents at 3%, period. You know,
right.
These guys come home. I mean, then you have, you know, cases like Badu Jack, who we've been very fortunate and very blessed with, is we've been able to have him overseas. We've been able to cut out, you know, any kind of promotions. He deals directly with the promotion. Me as the advisor is the only thing. And when I'm working with a promotion, my fee is incurred from the promoter side, so he can net all of his purse.
All of it. Right.
And move forward like that. And mind you, those are unique cases, but they do happen, and it does work that way. So it's important to be able to have, again, it's a business disguised as a sport. You got to have the right team in place. The fighter can only do what he's going to do, right? And let's face it, the majority of fighters don't have education from a financial point. You know, we have a financial advisor that we go through, that I have all of my fighters work with. He is the top guy in the game, I believe. Very honest, very down to, you know, to brass bones, and he lets them know exactly, you know, what the fight is, how much they'll net, how much to put aside, tax allocation, et cetera, et cetera. You need those things, man. The majority of fighters don't have it.
Right.
So what do they end up getting? All this money. 5 years down the road, they get audited. They haven't paid a dime in taxes. They owe all the money on the back end. Now they've spent it all because, you know, they rented an apartment, but there's a Bentley out in the driveway. And mind you, I say these things kind of like funny, but it happens. I mean, I've seen it.
No, it's true. It's 100% true.
So, you know, these guys end up in a very bad situation towards the end of their careers.
So now let me ask you this: how do you see, based off the business model that you successfully had with Badu Jack, and you see the dynamic between promoters and fighters, and how some get a percentage when they shouldn't, and do you think that in the future fighters probably, if they get more educated, they'll lean towards that Badu situation, or it's just hard to say right now?
If you, and Marshall, you've been around fighters, you could tell the first thing that fighters have, because they've been screwed so many times, they always have their guard up. So they're very leery of everybody, but they're all fighters. I mean, they're not that, and typically what'll happen is they'll have somebody, a family member,
uncle,
a close friend, that'll come in and start advocating for them, and they're just as bad, worse than the actual fighter himself in terms of, you know, acumen of how to be able to steer that thing. So I would love to say that fighters could and should start steering that way, but it's a very difficult situation. You got to have somebody that's around that knows what they're doing, that has the connections, and has, you know, a moral compass to be able to tell. There's a lot of times where in Badu's situation, I could have easily, without him knowing anything, scooted percentages here, there, the other. I could have done that because he
Right.
has,
Right.
but I show him everything and I lay everything out and say, where it is. This is what I'm getting. This is what they're getting. This is what they're getting, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And that's how the business should be laid out. And while you do that, you're educating the fighter.
100%. 100%. So now, how many people or fighters do you have currently under your roster? I read somewhere that you have Usyk as one of your clients.
Usyk, we signed when I was advising Skill Challenge Promotions out of Saudi Arabia. They had signed him to that. I stepped away from them and kind of they'd done their own thing as well. And Usyk right now, we just have a great friendship.
Okay.
We talk, with his team. I have a great relationship with Aegis and Alex,
Right.
but he officially signed to me. No.
Okay.
But I have a handful, and this is the thing is I get requests so many. Every week I'm at least talking to one guy. I'd like to keep it. I'd like to keep it under the 15 mark. That way I can give these guys the kind of attention that they need.
Okay.
And if I can't add value to them, I don't want to be a part of it.
Right.
It's if I know that there's going to be, and there was a big prospect that, just came up and I took a pass on it. It was just, we wouldn't have seen eye to eye. And, financially, thank God, I'm not in a position where I need to do this. I do. We wouldn't have been on the same wavelength. So It didn't work. And I took a pass on it respectfully. And I work with the guys that I want to work with. And thank God we've done very well with the guys that we do have.
So now let me ask you this. If you look at the way, let's just look at guys like Ryan Garcia, for example, he's big enough that, because when I interviewed him a few times, and when one of the conversations we had, he said, I don't care about titles. I don't need titles.
Right.
How do you see that going in the future? Because with the new platform with social media and now there's so many venues and avenues that fighters can go to build themselves up, or almost like the record business, when back in the days people built their own buzz up, then they went to the record label and negotiated a deal.
Yeah.
Unlike that, now fighters like guys like Ryan Garcia and Jake Paul, who really have a following, they don't need a belt to validate them.
Right.
So how do you see that going in the future? Do you think that sanctioning bodies will have a role, or do you think that will phase out at some point?
Everybody always aspires to who the champ is. And unfortunately, or fortunately, however, whatever side of the business you're on, there are 4 major sanctioning bodies.
Right.
So you could have given champions, at any weight class. But you're looking at anomalies when you talk about Jake Paul and Ryan Garcia, because even when Ryan Garcia started, I'll never forget it, when he was making his debut, one of the highlights on his, on the screen that came up, it was talking about, national champion, this, and it says 970,000 grams. That's something that he's accomplished, but I'll tell you something, it absolutely is.
Yes.
It is, because that holds a lot of weight. So Ryan Garcia, and you posted something today, which I thought was very, very wise. Ryan Garcia is getting ahead of the press. He built his own media. What Ryan says will happen. Muhammad Ali would tell everybody, I am the greatest. Now, mind you, I do believe he's the greatest, but everybody starts saying I'm the greatest. Floyd was saying TBE. Everybody started calling him TBE. And Ryan can say things and debunk valid groups like VADA and valid tests that are real. And my position on this is a little bit unique, because I've been on that side,
right,
with Bud and Pascal when he popped.
Right. Remember, I was at that fight too. Yeah.
Yeah. You can debunk.
I wasn't at that fight because that's.
Why would you let me fight?
Right.
I'm sorry.
I said I wasn't at that fight because it didn't happen because Pascal popped 30.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I lost an opportunity of a lifetime. But more importantly, imagine if they didn't get tested, what could have happened in the ring? Like, you're stripping a man of his health. Anyway, not to saying on that, but what ends up happening then is these you can put that narrative out, and he could say, well, why would you let me fight? Well, anybody that knows that tests don't turn around like that. VADA turns up, and then 2 weeks later, 3 weeks later, you get the result. It's not an immediate result. So most fighters, their results come back after the fight.
Right.
It's just it works.
Right.
If they catch it early enough, when they do random visits. Badu one time was getting a massage, and they called me and said, where are you? And they walked into the massage massage, and they tested him there.
Right.
You know, they'll show up at the gym. They'll show up anywhere. So if they show up early enough, then great. Then, you know, they'll catch it. But if not, you don't catch it until after. So, and again, the reason I'm using this is, you know, Ryan used that and saying, well, why'd they let me fight? Well, they let you fight because they tested it too soon to the fight. You know what I mean? Now, to his credit, he does a great job. You know, he does a great job. He understands that demographic. You know, I don't get it. Right? I'm 46. I'll be 47 this year. I'm kind of removed from that mentality and that, you know, that mindset. But he does a phenomenal job in it, and he has a huge fan base. And you know, he drives his own bus, and he has the people around him that can get him to where he needs to be. But he really is the boss, where he can make his own his own media and his own press. So I guess to answer your question, I don't think Jake and Ryan are the examples. I think that they're the anomaly. I think that they're the, you know, the white rabbit that that kind of everyone faces to be like and emulate, just like Floyd was. But can it be the norm? I don't think so.
Well, here's my position on that, because I'm 50. God spare my life. I'll be 51 the 29th of right. So I kind of had to adjust to the whole social media thing and understanding how the power, because at one point I was like I didn't believe that having a social media following translated into money, right? I didn't believe that, but now I see that it gives the appearance of money, which is money to some people, because if they can capitalize off that views or that attention, then it turns into money. You follow me? So with and Ryan on that thing, I said, if you can control the media, you can control the narrative. You can control the narrative, you can control the media. He went. I did a post, and I said that you know, I said something because, to be honest with you, full disclosure, I actually picked Ryan to beat Devin for a myriad of reasons. I did. I was probably the only one, and I was vocal about it. And it came to pass, because here's the thing. I looked at it from when I looked at boxing, I looked at the guys was 3-3. Then I looked at in the amateurs, they had protection. Then I looked at the fact that Ryan was coming in obviously heavier, and he didn't care. He gave it up. And I said, without headgear, and we know that Devin is a great boxer, but Ryan is a fighter. So when you have a fighter who has a punching prowess, this guy and I'm saying this 100%, Ryan probably has the best left hook in boxing, bar none. I'm saying this right now. He probably has the best left hook in boxing. And I looked at the two, and I said, Devin is chinny, and all Ryan has to do is touch it. And I was at the fight, and I was the only one. And you know, my man Kevin Newman, he came up, he ran up on me. You've been biased and all this stuff. But I was saying, listen, I'm honest. So I don't have a dog in the fight. I like both of them. Actually, I really like both of them. But that was my opinion. My honest opinion is that, you know, that was going to happen. But that aside, I look at the way boxing is moving right now. Right now, I would say, honestly, we're in a good space. We have great fights back to back to back. I think boxing is ticking up. But then we get into lulls, right? But then when we get into the lulls, we'll have a big breakout. I'm looking at this thing now. I'm looking at what's the implications, what's the ramifications. Ryan's test come back the 22nd, right?
Okay, do you believe that an A sample and a B sample can differ that
No.
much? I don't either. And I'll tell you something. If they do, if that B sample on, what is it, 22nd, I think it comes back. If that B sample comes back negative, then you know Ryan was right about saying somebody tampered with something. But I think that's a big, big stretch. And I think it's terrible. Look, Devin is a personal friend of mine. He's a brother of mine. And yet no wonder you had beef with Kevin Newman, because that's Devin's boy.
That's guy. It wasn't beef. It was all love, man. That's Kevin, my guy.
Love Kevin. Kevin's like a little brother of mine also. But the you know, if I thought that upset, that whole buildup of him, you know, putting that narrative of him being crazy, it could have been wonderful for the story in itself. Now, him talking about the drinking and the smoking, all of that. I don't know how
he did it. It wasn't talking. He actually was doing it. I have a friend who is a good promoter in some of the clubs, and he always calls me when fighters come through and stuff like that. And we talk, and he was like, "Yo, bro, I'm gonna tell you something, man. This guy is out here singing Keisha Cole with I forget the name of the drink because I don't drink. I never drink, but Ryan literally was living his life. And so when he popped Dirty, I'm not going to say that I believe that he did something intentionally. I believe that he did something with somebody who was stupid enough to think that they can get away with it. And that's where the team of yes men being around. All right. You see Kev? He said, I said, I think that Ryan did. I think that he took something, but he didn't know what it was, and that's what it turned out to be.
Kills. What I'm saying, and to finish the thought was, it's so bad for the sport that he popped. You know, you had Conor McGregor loving the kid, and then just like that, flipping on him. You had all of these guys that were advocating for him. So what did he do? He took to his social media and the millions of guys that he has behind him and telling him, listen, it's fake. They're trying to set me up. And then all of these, and I hate to use this word because I would never, try to insult anybody, but all of the sheep that would just believe what he says without actually having any factual basis. Yeah, that's right. Why did they let him fight if he was really positive? It's fake. Oh, really? Kim Stumbler resigned from the New York State Athletic Commission because, it was the perfect storm. And you know what? Ryan capitalized on it.
And he trumped I called it the Trump effect. He trumped it. He literally took the truth and told the truth as if it was a lie.
Correct.
And people ran with it. And I think that's genius from a young person who people always thought he's stupid, he's a game, he's a joke. He actually monetized that whole thing. And he's still doing it today. And he had a Freudian slip, and which was today, he goes, well, I believe that the B sample is going to come back dirty because he probably got an advance notice that it is, and so now he said,
they're trying to screw me.
He's going to vindicate me, and I believe it,
Do I think that Ryan intentionally took it?
No.
I don't.
Neither.
I don't.
I think
somebody around him, and look, you see his videos, you see, he's got younger guys around him and people that think that they can beat the system around him. And,
yeah.
And mind you, the guy that can beat the system is the guy that's actually advocating for the right thing now.
Right.
I think that they tried to do that, and I think Ryan learned a huge lesson in that. He's got to kind of tighten up that circle in camp. The last camp with Tank, he had the same problem. He had somebody leaking information there. This camp, he might, it might be a lesson for him to say, listen, maybe we need to tighten things up. Maybe we need to kind of, check everybody. And a lot of my fighters' camps, before they even start, everybody's on an NDA. Everybody has, certain rules and roles that they have to play. And especially when you're at that level, it has to be that way. It just has to.
Would Ryan be somebody that you would consider taking on?
I think Ryan and I are probably too different in mentalities for it to make sense. I love the fact that he speaks up about things that he doesn't care about what anybody says. I love that. I love that he's, outward and he doesn't care what the masses think, from a personal reflection point. And as a Palestinian, I love that he spoke about the kids of Gaza because people don't talk. I do. I'm a fan of Ryan Garcia's, but that doesn't mean that we could work together. I have a great Eric Gomez and Oscar, and Guadalupe is his advisor. I had a couple of conversations with him, and I think that they're doing good. I think that they're okay. We would probably differ mentality-wise on how to go, and I don't know if it could work.
Now, if so, when you look at boxing right now, we touched on a lot of stuff, but what if you had the power to change one thing? What would that one thing be?
That's a loaded question, Martin. I don't know if you're asking that because you know something, but I had the plan, I had the blueprint, and I laid it out. And I hope that it's being implemented. And, you know, I'll go back to that. I believe the unity of boxing is how the sport progresses. You can't have, and I know we always go back to the whole Floyd example.
Right.
You can't have another Pacquiao Mayweather situation where these guys should have fought and it took 7 years to happen. You can't have another situation like that. And the only way that works is if everybody's on the same page. And right now, the entity that's making that work is the General Entertainment Authority, you know, based out of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, head by His Excellence Turki al-Sheikh.
Right.
And that should be the blueprint in how boxing unites. And it won't always be perfect because boxing, until it has a regulatory sanctioning organization, it'll be very difficult for that to happen. But at least, listen, at the end of the day, what brings everybody together? Money. And when you have one entity putting that up, then they all come. I'll tell you, I was sitting at Turki al-Sheikh's home, and I had Mike Tyson next to me, Conor McGregor next to him, Manny Pacquiao, Lennox Lewis, Evander Holt, not Evander was there, Oscar De La Hoya, Miguel Cotto, Prince Nassim Hamed, Buster Douglas, you name it. They were all there. What unifies guys like this is, first of all, the money. And secondly, is they love seeing, you know, big events and these fights that have never happened before. And
Right.
those elements, those boxes are checked with the kingdom.
Right. And what I love about the kingdom is that I did a post and I had him holding strings and he had all the promotion. You saw that. And I love that because I feel like, I don't know if you ever seen the movie The Toy with Richard Pryor.
Oh,
okay. Yeah. I look like his excellency as that, right? He has the means, the resources. He says, listen, I want to have the best toys ever. And I want action figures and I want them to match up with each other. So I'm going to be able to pay to make sure it happens. And for us as fans, it's like, oh my God, this is all it took. If here's the one thing if I could do anything, I would love to bring it here and all over, like make the thing travel.
I think that's what's happened. So when I laid out the blueprint was base the big fights out of Saudi, the A fights, the B fights, you know, bring them to the States and to the UK, but then start gravitating, because in Saudi, you know, it's very seasonal. Between May and September, it's very difficult to do anything in the kingdom.
Right.
It's very, very hot. So during you bring the big fights and you start gravitating them also to the outside, because also the time zone doesn't work for everybody, especially us on the West Coast.
Yes.
It's difficult for us, you know, like Usyk Fury fight. And the last fight they did, you know, those guys walked out, I think, at 2 or 3 in the morning Saudi time, so it could work for the UK and it could work for us. But it's still an afternoon, you know, where it's not what we're used to on a nice Saturday evening. Get the guys together, grab some pizzas, you know, and watch the fights. The timing has to be different, and they're starting to spread it around. And I think you're going to start seeing a lot more of that. But the unification of boxing is the only way this thing works.
The only way it works.
Money brings them all together anyway. I mean, that's all anybody's looking for anyway.
And what, like, if I would be a part of that team, I would tell him, because I know he has a bottomless bank account. I would tell him to buy a venue here and build it here in the United States. And for those B fights, I'm telling you, this is how, because I'm going to tell you what's going to happen. It's all good when it's over there, right? All the big promoters are okay with them being away. But once they start coming here and they wanted to take venues like the MGM Grand and all those things, that's when people are going to start peeing on their territory.
Yeah.
But if he come over here and purchase some acres, 30 acres of land that was accessible, and build a venue that can support sports, boxing, all, and listen, and have all the A fights, the B fights, whatever level fights or competition here in the States, the ones that don't make it there. And man, listen, boxing, he would have it. Bob Arum, all the big names would be in his hand because he would control everything.
He would, and he's already got them. I mean, he's got them going over there. Him doing it here would be a massive, massive. I don't think it would be that big of an undertaking. It would just be a massive move for the sport in whole. But anywhere you have things like that, I mean, look, I keep my ears to the ground pretty much. And boxing is a very small circle, by the way. You know,
Oh,
fast. You know, I'm hoping that everyone's going to do right by him and not take advantage of him, because once he gets a wind of how dirty the sport is, he might have a different take on it. But right now, everything is great because everybody's happy and everybody's getting compensated very well. But boxing's nature is a snake. You know, when I came out to Las Vegas, I was in New York for 35 years. I knew in Vegas, I knew Mike Tyson and I knew Jeff Mayweather. And Mike Tyson gave me the best advice ever. He goes, listen, the only thing that lives out here in the desert are snakes and chameleons. So decide which one you want to be.
wow.
And always, it always stuck with me. It's either a snake, either blend in with everybody, or you become one of the people that you want to be away from. And what he meant in the desert is the boxing game, you know, and that's unfortunately what the nature of the sport is. You'd like to think that there are honorable people and people that do right. I can honestly say I have a great relationship with everybody. Nobody can ever say AMER ever screwed me, AMER ever took advantage of me, AMER didn't do what he was going to do. Everything that I've said I've done, and everything that I've done, you know, I said I would do. And I'd like to think that I over delivered on a lot of things and done it with, you know, utmost integrity and honesty. Because I take a lot of pride in everything that I say, and my reputation is important to me. I don't know if people that are driven by the dollar, I'm not sure if that's probably the demise of boxing. You know, I remember, again, another Mike Tyson. By the way, I have a page of Mike Tyson sayings. Every time I'm around him, he hits something profound.
Genius.
Oh, he really is.
Yeah.
He really is.
Well read.
Yeah, very much so. Very deep, very intellectual also. You know, I was on a phone call and it was a deal gone bad. And, you know, I hung up and I was like, man, you know what? Money is the root of all evil. And he grabbed my hand. He goes, no, brother. He goes, not having money is the root of all evil. It's not the money that's the evil. It's not having it. And people start acting a certain way when they don't have it. And it's very true. And, you know, when you have managers, you know, trying to screw other managers and promoters trying to cut the necks of other promoters because, you know, it's all chasing the money, and that's where your problems happen.
So let me ask you this. I know you got to go, and I don't want to hold you too long, but I've been dying to get this conversation with you. So I'm actually honored that we're talking. With Jake Paul and Mike Tyson, did you have anything to do with that fight?
No, I mean, from the Tyson side, of course, I represent Mike Tyson, and Mike's has always been, you know, on the fence of doing things. We field offers all the time.
I'm sure.
All the time with Tyson. And, you know, the big fight that's always offered to Mike is Tyson Holyfield 3. And we get offers from every country. We get offers from, you know, in the States, and everybody talks a good name, a good number, and all of that. And sometimes Mike felt like fighting, and sometimes he didn't.
Right.
There was a point in time when, you know, there was a very good offer that came through, and Mike was like, you know what, I'm good for now.
Right.
And of course, you know, with MVP, we promoted the Jake Paul Tommy Fury fights. So relationship with Nikisa and Jake and that whole team, but actually promoting the fight and putting it together, no, that was all Nikisa. And mind you, the fight wasn't supposed to be Mike; it was supposed to be Tommy Fury. But
right.
Yeah, and then Tommy just asked, I think, from what I understand, too much money, and they passed. And they said, "What's the next big thing?" And Mike Tyson was the name. And at that point, Mike was like, "Yeah, I'll do it."
But I can't imagine that Tommy Fury would command more or ask more than what Mike Tyson would demand, because the marquee name is Mike Tyson.
That's what's selling this fight, guys. At the end of the day, Jake's a great dance partner, and Jake's a disruptor by all means. But the draw in this fight is Mike Tyson.
Is the anomaly. He's an older guy. He's a legend. He's doing all these things. It's Mike Tyson, probably the one most renowned name in boxing all over the world. People think that it's Floyd. No, it's absolutely not. It's Muhammad Ali and Mike Tyson. You go with a picture of those two people, and everybody will point their finger and say, I know those people.
You nailed it right there. I say that all the time. There's only two names in the whole world internationally that everybody knows. It's Muhammad Ali and Mike Tyson.
100%.
But right dance partner for this. Don't get me wrong. Jake's the right guy, because everybody would love to see Mike knock this guy into, you know, next century. Everybody would love to see that. And mind you, I think it's going to happen. I mean, Mike is not
end of the spectrum.
He's not a be around. His mentality has totally shifted.
Oh, okay, because I was afraid of that. See, the Mike Tyson that I look, because I grew up in Brooklyn, right? Mike Tyson used to live right down the block from me. He used to come around, take us in his car and all those things, right? I got a long history. I've been around. So my fear is the Mike Tyson I know, the beast, the monster. He was too happy jerky with this guy. And I needed him to turn on to the point where he's saying, look, I'm going to put this dude in the dirt. Now, my fear is, what does that do to Mike Tyson's legacy should Jake Paul knock Mike Tyson out?
Don't ever say that to Mike. Mike is not defined by a Jake Paul fight. What Mike Tyson did in the first 30 years of his life, the first 35 years of his life, cannot be touched by what he does
with you and me. Yes, with you and me. But you got to talk about, this is what you don't understand. There's a new generation. Like my children, my biggest sad point was, here's the things I regret. I regret that my children will never ever see Biggie Small perform live, Tupac perform live, and Mike Tyson fight live. That's what I was always regret, because those are the things that I enjoyed, right?
Okay.
But the younger generation, they don't revere Mike Tyson the way we know Mike Tyson. So what they will do is say that Jake Paul is the greatest fighter who ever lived, and Mike Tyson was dominated, and he was nothing, and he, like, I was, I'm telling you 100%, I was totally anti that fight. I was like, why? And I blamed Floyd. I said, you are the reason that these things are happening, because you get in the ring. Like, I believe that you cherish your legacy, and to the point where, guys, people want signed autographs by you because of your work ethic, the things that you did, how they viewed themselves based off of you. Bro, when Mike Tyson lost, I can tell you exactly where I was at the time. Though that is equivalent, listen to me, I know people might get offended on this. It was equivalent to 9/11 when Mike Tyson lost. To me, a young Brooklyn kid who idolized this guy, who knew him and felt, you understand? I know where I was. So when you see something like that, I hated I hated Antonio Tarver for years. Like, I had a personal vendetta. Like, I wanted to run up on him because he knocked Roy Jones out.
I share those sentiments. Mike Tyson versus Buster Douglas was emotionally a scar for my childhood. Roy Jones, Antonio Tarver was, Superman's kryptonite. I mean, where it was indefinite to him. That was terrible for me. Mind you, good for the guy, good for Buster Douglas, good for Antonio Tarver. But yes, I share those same sentiments. I don't think, though, that Mike Tyson at the age of 58 years old is going to be defined by a Jake Paul fight. Now, mind you, do I want to see Mike win? I absolutely do. Because we have. And the last press conference in Dallas, when Jake was talking to Mike, I almost wanted to get up and slap Jake and say, how dare you speak to a guy like that way? Like, what have you, when he said, I'm going to teach you how to buy, and mind you, Jake knows how to sell. He knows how to sell.
Yeah,
he knows.
That was. But I think there's a line that you cannot cross in trying to sell, because the people are going to buy it regardless, right? You're Jake Paul and it's Mike Tyson. But you don't need to be disrespectful to Mike Tyson of all the accolades, all the things, his life story, his rise, his fall, everything that makes this man who he is. You come from Nickelodeon and you talk to him like that. But that's for me. So now I hope Mike takes a PED and go in there and clean him up.
I went on recently a 2-week tour with Mike. We went overseas to a couple of countries. That guy's an animal in the gym. He doesn't need PEDs. No, his work.
No, I'm just joking.
Yeah.
Because there was rumors that Jake Paul was popping something, or his brother or something like that. Yeah, I remember hearing something like that. So I'm just.
By the way,
I think Tyson's skill alone is gonna knock Jake Paul out. Jake Paul is on his way to something. But here's the thing: I always say this too, and I got a lot of respect for him because I actually saw the guy take a step back and offer some of his purse up and do things that most fighters wouldn't do. And I salute him for that. But I think that, you know, he's a real fighter. I know your brother, my brother Larry Wade works with him and all that stuff. But I feel like if you want to be a real fighter and you say that you want these real fights, at some point you're gonna have to really fight fighters that are contenders and move your way up like everybody else.
He was. No, Marshall, but he was. And Tommy Fury was supposed to be the fight. But when you have an opportunity like this, you got to remember what the nature of this is. It's a business disguised as a sport. So you could either be the guy selling your world title fight, your world title belt, or you could be the guy that's going to take this absurd amount of money that Netflix is going to launch boxing with its inception event. Yeah, we can take a step out of, you know, working our way up to be able to tap into that historic event, sell out Dallas, sell out, you know, Netflix, 700 million people, you know, 300 million households internationally are going to get this thing for free. No, we can take a step away from, we can kind of, you know, sidestep the path that we're going to go on for that. I give him a.
But here's the gift and the curse with that. I'm going to do you one better. Now, Mike Tyson stops Jake Paul, right? Now you got a almost 60-year-old guy knocking out a young guy.
Yeah.
Where's he go now, right? Does he
think anybody, Jake's a win-win situation. Do you think anybody, for what this hype is hyped up to be, what this fight's hyped up to be, do you think anybody would look at Jake Paul and say, damn, Jake, you suck, you got knocked out by Mike Tyson?
Yeah.
Regardless, I don't.
Yeah. I think they will. And here's why. I think they will because, number one, he was disrespectful. Number two, he's putting himself on as this great fighter. Number three, he's calling out Canelo like the prime guy. I'm going to tell you, I'm going to do some memes. I got some loaded, waiting to shoot. But once Mike Tyson puts him to sleep.
But that's what Jake does. He disrupts things. Like he does things so absurd to you and I where he calls out a guy like Canelo. But what does it do? It gets guys like you and I talking about it. Because that's what he does. He walks into a UFC arena and the whole stadium is F-U Jake Paul. He knows how to get under these guys. I mean, that's what he does. He's a content creator. And we're reacting. We're the guys that click that clickbait. And he's the guy that puts the bait out there. And that's what he's. The Mike Tyson fight is absolutely a clickbait fight. But it's a real fight. I think this thing started as an exhibition. And they were going to get in there and go through the moves. And they were going to, you know, put on a decent fight. But now it's real. You know, Mike got the shorter rounds that he wanted because he wants a lot more activity. 8 rounds is good for Mike, and he's going to be able to be throwing, you know, heavy shots at least for those first 3 or 4 rounds. If Jake gets past 3 or 4 rounds, it'll be very interesting to see what happens.
Now here's the thing. Now, does this go on Mike Tyson's official record?
It does.
It
does. And for me, I mean, for Mike Tyson, again, Mike's history, his career, his accomplishments, nobody can take that away from him.
No.
You gotta remember, you know, it's a fight defines Mike Tyson by any means. I think that what it does, though, is it is still Mike Tyson. I mean, does Anderson Silva, do you think that the loss to Jake Paul took away from his MMA career?
I think I have a different philosophy in a lot of ways. I want guys to always make money, but I do think there's a real thing of staying too long. And it's a real thing. And what happens is guys that they get the chink in their armor and it gets exploited, and then the sun starts coming through, and then you can see that where it was protecting them from things. Now you can see the things coming through. And I think that
what happened when Ray came back against Camacho. That was another one of those heartbreak stories. He came back with one too many fights.
Bernard Hopkins. The list goes on. Like, I'll never lose to a white boy. Then he gets knocked out the ring. And no. Because I have some fries with that shake after you get, you know. So there's a thing that a part of me, I know Mike Tyson is financially set. I know he's okay. Can he make a lot more money? Sure. But does it have to be in the ring? Mike Tyson is the most charismatic, highly intelligent, most notable person on the planet. He can make that same money doing a script with somebody in the movie. But I know he's a fighter. He says I do this because this is what I'm born to do. I get it. Jay-Z said something that was interesting. He said, I got a gift. God gave me a gift. Who am I to turn it off? Who am I to stop it but I think that just like men and women, there's a time where we can have children, and then there's a time where naturally God cut it off. Not for men so much, but if you can't get it up, you can't get a kid, right? So I think that there's expiration dates on everything. And
I think that you and I are under that mentality of we want to see Mike win big for the generation, for the history, for boxing. Because boxing purists, that's what we want to see.
And
Mike Tyson, and I've been around a lot of fighters and a lot of champions. I've never been around anybody who's in fight mode 100% of the time like Mike is. Mike's being is combative. It's war. That's just who he is. Everything he does is in that nature. It's very, I mean, when you see Mike Tyson as the humble guy and the quiet guy, you know, that's him really, really striving towards that humbleness. But he is a warrior of warriors. I mean, he's a man's man. He's that guy that, you know, if there's one guy that you want to call in a fight, it's him, because he's just cut from a different cloth, man. He's just, you know, I'll tell you a funny story. It's personal. We were in Saudi Arabia. There was a cold plunge in the hotel,
right.
And you know, I hate cold water.
Yeah.
And it would take 20 minutes to get into the cold plunge. So I ankle first, tilt numb, knees, weight. I'd be like, good. So I was talking. We were back up at the room, and Mike's like, "Yeah, what'd you do at the gym today?" And I said, "Yeah, I worked out. I hit the cold plunge." He goes, "There's a cold plunge here." I go, "Yeah, man, I hate that shit." I said, "Man, it's so cold." He goes, "No, man, you got to jump right into it." And I go, "Man, I'm not jumping into that thing." I go, "You think you can do it?" And the problem is I went like this to him. I go, "You think you can do it?" And as soon as I did that, Marsh, you should have seen the look in his eyes.
Twitch.
He goes, "We're going down right now." I go, "It's 2 a.m. They're closed." He goes, "They're not closed. Call them." So I call him and he goes, "Put him on speaker." And I'm like, I just poked this bear that I wish I wouldn't have poked. And they're like, "Yeah, sir, you know, we're closed. We'll be up at 9 we'll be opening at 9 a.m. I go, "Great." He goes, 9 a.m. I'll see you down at the cold plunge. And I go, so I was like, at this point, I was like, shit, we're already into it. I go, "All right, make sure you're there."
Right.
And then, I know this dude didn't sleep all night. I know it was just stewing with him. The next morning, I'm in the gym, you know, and I'm working out. It was like 8 o'clock, 8:45, 8:55. This guy walks in like I took his lunch money. He walks into the gym and he's looking, he's scanning for me. He thought, when we cut your eyes, I'm like, man, shit, I was hoping he'd forget about it. I hope
right.
he just woke up a different animal in him. And he was like, "Let's go." And we went over to the cold plunge area. And typically there's a changing room.
Right.
Change, and then you go in. He walked right into the thing, stripped off his clothes, and just jumps right into the cold plunge underwater. And then, you know, just screaming and like flexing. He's like looking at me like he's pissed. I'm like, oh my goodness. So then he gets out and he goes, "Your turn." And I was like, fuck. But I was like, all right. And I'll tell you what, he made me mentally, I broke through that. Now I can just get into the cold plunge because he made me uncomfortable enough where I was like, all right, watch. And I get right in and I do the same thing. And mind you, I wanted to have a heart attack, but he made me break that barrier. And I'll tell you, guys like him are very, very, very,
very rare.
Level you up against your will. But I said all of that to say he's a fighter in everything that he does. He just,
because I remember watching one of the interviews where he started crying. He says, I don't want to be this humble guy. I miss that monster. And when I tell you, I felt
it. He just does what he wants to do because it's just, he is.
Right. I felt that in my soul. I felt him saying, I am that guy. You know what I mean? But listen, I need predictions from you before I let you go. I need predictions. All right. So we got the Jake Paul, Mike Tyson. I'm pretty sure I know where you're going with that one, but I need you to give me a verbal declaration on how that fight ends.
Let me tell you who this fight will depend on. The fight will depend on Jake. If Jake is ballsy enough to push Mike back, he might find success. If Jake gets intimidated by Mike, he goes to sleep within 2 rounds.
Okay, so I need Usyk, Fury.
Initially, when I was a part of the negotiation and I actually told them, I said, I can close this fight in an hour, in a half hour, if you give me the authority to talk to them. And for whatever political reasons, they didn't want that to happen. So in the beginning, I said, man, Fury's going to steamroll this guy.
Right.
But the more I think about it, the more I think that Usyk's going to pull off the upset. And I think Usyk actually probably outboxes him and takes the win. And I think it'll be decisive.
I'm agreeing with you 1,000%. Everybody think that I'm crazy, but I've been like 99.99% right most of the 99% of the time when it comes to this stuff, because I'm looking at this. I think Tyson Fury got prepared for Usyk in this fight, right?
Yeah,
but
I agree.
Usyk got prepared for Tyson Fury his whole career.
What a great sentence. You are absolutely right. The Tyson Fury that fought, and mind you, Tyson's the kind of guy that rises in life. And by the way, it's just like Badu Jack. When you have an easy fighter in front of you, you kind of drop down to that level.
Yeah.
I don't think you'd ever see an Usyk perform like that against Ngannou. The Fury that fought Ngannou that was unbelievable. It was unbelievable. I don't think that's the Fury that you have now, but I do think, regardless, you nailed it. That this is the fight of Usyk rises to the occasion. And I think this is going to be Usyk's night. I do.
Country
upset.
He's first of all, he's fighting for his country. He's fighting for the revenge of the Klitschko loss, and he's fighting for so much more.
Yeah.
And I think what motivates a man is this. Is why I always say you can't measure a man's resolve. There's no way to measure a man's resolve. You can say what you think, but what's inside them is hard to say. And I know Tyson Fury is that kind of guy that can show up and shock the world, but I think punch output is going to be the difference. I think
Usyk's going to pull off the upset.
Yeah, and last but not least, I'm going to say it. I'm not going to go public yet, but I want to know your prediction for Frank Martin and Gervonta Davis.
Mind you, I know a lot of people, and the casuals might not know who Frank Martin is. Do a little bit of research on them. This kid's coming to fight. This is not an easy fight, but I do think Tank is cut from a different cloth. I do think Tank is a different animal. I love his mentality. I love his ferociousness. I love his tenacity. I love his power. I love his boxing IQ these days. I think Tank wins big.
Oh, I think I have a different take on that, but I'm going to save my prediction for later. But Tank, we know who the reason why I have so much admiration for Tank, and people see that I post him a lot, it's because he put me in the mind of Mike Tyson.
Yeah, exactly. He's got that killer mentality.
If you ever look at Mike Tyson's eyes, Mike Tyson has a blank stare, as if like there's nothing there. Sometimes when he looks at you, if you trigger him and he looks at you, it's like, oh my God, what did I just do?
Yeah, and Frank doesn't have that kind of experience under those lights. That's another one. I mean, that's a big, mind you, even if he's great in the gym. And look, I always say that my number one example of a phenomenal guy in the gym is Lonnie Thompson. Right. Lonnie beat the brakes off of the best guys in the world. I've seen that in my own eyes. I think Lonnie always had a problem at the scale, which he got fixed now. But under the lights is a different kind of an animal. Frank doesn't have experience against those kinds of guys or on this kind of stage.
But when he beat Michelle Rivera, I gotta tell you, I was so impressed with Frank Martin and his ability to take away Michelle Rivera and almost expose him as a one-dimensional fighter.
Yeah, he didn't stop him, right? He went the distance with him.
The distance with him, but it was the way he took all Rivera's gifts away from him. Let me know that this kid's got a great IQ.
Yeah. I mean, this could be the breakthrough fight for him.
Yeah. So I'm going to say this because my dog bum rushed me. I appreciate you, man, and I want to do anything that you want to do. I want to be a part of anything that you got going on, brother. My platform is your platform. Anything you need, post it, sent out. This is your house, my house.
I appreciate that. I'm working on a big project now, and you're going to be one of the first calls that I make.
I'm honored, man. Thank you so much, man. And I'm gonna let you get back to your family because I know you're a
Thank
traveling businessman. Thank you so much, man. This was great for me. Thank you.
Take care, brother. Thank you for having me on.